Well, hi, everybody. My name is Charlie. I work for Wikibase Solutions and yes, Kwaks as well. And this presentation is on how we uh, build successful media wiki applications from from the start, like first contact with the customer to the end. If ever is an end with a certain customers, and all the steps in between and how we approach that. And Jesse will go in depth into a more specific area that we use. If you have a lot of people working on the same project, coding on the same project, he will talk about versioning, but he will also talk about cloud solutions like AWS or Azure, and how we approach that, containers, Docker containers, all those kind of things. He will go in depth into that, and I won't. I will just do a global thing on how we approach um, uh, working on a project. So Wikibase Solutions, just really short, if you don't know who we are, we're an IT solutions company based in the Netherlands with 2 offices and about 14 people working there. And we focus entirely on the MediaWiki platform. And we are specialists in solution architecture for the MediaWiki platform. But we also have specialists in design and programming like JavaScript and PHP and Jesse for cloud platforms and more. Um, and the last line I put there is because I think it's really important that we don't just work for a customer. If you're an IT solutions company, you really work together with a customer, trying to understand his needs and his current structures, all those kind of things, to really get that job done and to actually be a good partner for that customer, especially in the long term. So I just wanted to put that there because it kind of relates to the IT solutions company phrase. Okay, let's dive into this. I'm going to talk a little bit about the project, so how we handle a project, the need assessments, the solution architecture, and the actual building. And a big part of that for us is the look and feel. So that's a separate part. And kind of the tools we use, also the tools that we use that we have on the shelf, and that could be like extensions, but also templates and widgets and all those kind of things we already have, and we can just deploy at a customer. And then of course, sometimes you have to custom make uh, templates, widgets, extensions, all those kind of things. And I talk a little bit about that as well. So for the first part, the project. So how do we handle a project? We divide that in 3 large segments. So we try to figure out what is the need assessment, the solution architecture, we get into that part, and then the actual building. Now, if you look at that pyramid, I just put a pyramid there because Art really likes pyramids. Art is a colleague of mine. So on top, you have the project goal, the first part, the first contact which you have with the customer, and he explains to you what you want. And then you start to understand that process. What does it mean? And we need more information, so we ask the client as well. And then we get to the part on how to get there. How do we get to that goal? And then in the end, actual building and using all the resources in a clever way. And it's the biggest part of the pyramid because usually it takes the longest, and in the end it's the base. So I thought the pyramid would be appropriate here. So let's divide the first 3 steps. Project goal. That's your first contact with the client. The introduction with the client, you hear what his ideas are and what he wants. You already start to kind of fine tune the idea. This could be like, for example, the first phone call you have with that person or the first Skype call or whatever. And then you get to the part of understanding the goal. So what are his requirements? We usually do a co-create. So we actually sit down with the customer and we look at his processes that he currently has, requirements that he needs, especially for the goal, for the project that we're working on, but also his current user interface. If he has examples, does he have a brand manual, all those kind of things. You want to gather as much as information as possible to understand what the customer wants and what he needs, especially in the future as well. And then we come to the part of how we get there. So that's kind of the third part in the pyramid. And that can be like consulting each, the colleagues within Wikibase Solutions, and then have a look at what building blocks we can use for this project. But also, do we need to make custom building blocks or custom code? And can we do that? Do we need to hire people for that or not? Can we do this in-house? And out of all of that comes like a concept proposal. That goes to the client, and the client will have feedback on that, and from that we'll have a final proposal. And from out of the final proposal, we start to create a project plan, putting everything in there, all the tasks that needs to be done, everything. And we use the milestones as well, because milestones, they support the roadmap, and we capture them during the whole project. And they do not only give us guidance, but also the customer. We're working towards a milestone, and that works really well in the process that we have. Then you get to the bottom part, which is using the resources and actually start building. And as you can see here, the solutions design or the solution architecture and the need assessments, they're kind of woven into each other with the understanding the process and how to get there. The reason for that is if you have a co-create with the customer and he explains his needs, but we, for instance, have something on the shelf already that we could implement, we discuss that. So there's already you're already discussing something in between the understanding the goal and how to get there. So I kind of try to make sense out of this by having the solution design inside the understanding the process and how to get there. Then when we start building, so we know everything, we have the plan, we know who's going to do what. So we're going to start and execute this order. And that's a going forth with the customer as well. We create a small part, or we create until a milestone. You communicate that with the customer, or you communicate that with other colleagues. They validate it, so that could be a colleague or a customer. And that's why I try to make that diagram. It keeps on going. We keep communicating with the customer and internally as well until the end where we deliver the order. Now, for some customers, this is the end of the road. We talk to them, he tells us what we need to do, we do this, and it's done. But 90% of the time, this is just a branch out of a huge tree, because a customer could be really satisfied with us, and they usually are, of course. And then another project comes, which is based on the first one. And then we go through all these steps again. Or this was a really big project, and I just talked about a sub-project. But every project that we do for a customer, if it's one or if it's 1,000, this is the process that we go through from the beginning till the end. So that's enough talk about how we like go into a project and all the steps that we go before we actually start building. And these are really important steps, because if you fail in one of these steps, you'll have an unsatisfied customer for sure. Within those steps, especially with when we start to build, the look and feel for us is really important. And it basically starts with the look and feel, because the look and feel, so how does this application look, or how will this website look? It can influence what programmers need to be doing, what we actually need to build. So it's kind of a small branch out of that as well, and it's one of our strongest assets. We have, like, internally, we have people that can do the design. So based on the client's input and his brand manual, we start to create a mock-up that goes to the client. We get feedback, and that goes for up and down, and then at the end we start to build the mock-up that we made, and we do that in CSS and HTML, and we do that using Chameleon. With that, we have a golden rule. Because we have specialists that are specialists in HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and of course MediaWiki, we divide the HTML from the actual data for two reasons. So we use templates basically as the engines gathering all the information, all the data that we need out of the wiki. And then we send them off to the widgets, and the widgets, they create the HTML output. Meaning that somebody that has the knowledge of HTML and CSS, but not of MediaWiki, can just go into a widget and do his thing there. Because you don't want anyone who's not familiar with templates with a MediaWiki trying to get HTML inside a template. It's for them, it's a pain, and in the end, it's for everybody a pain. So we split that up, and I think it's very good practice to have those separated anyways. If you program in PHP, you do the same thing. You separate the two. So that's basically our golden rule. So if there's something wrong with the data, we know we need to go into the template. If there's something wrong with the layout or the design, we know it's a widget. Talking about look and feel, so I just show you some examples of 100% MediaWiki websites that just don't look like a MediaWiki website, because you talk to the customer and this is basically what they have in mind of how it should look. This is a nice example of a customer. We just finished this, and those kind of cards are basically PDF files that he has available. Those are kind of books, and we show them in a really nice way, actually as cards. So if you hover over them with the mouse, it'll switch around and tell you what's inside. And then there's more about this website. Of course, if you search, you will actually search inside the PDFs, and the result will open up the PDF and highlight the text you searched for. So there's really way much more to this website than just the look and feel. But I'm talking about the look and feel, so that's why I'm showing you this. Another example of a customer that has a planning tool that we created. This is a normal MediaWiki page, but we added this calendar inside. On the left side, you see like a whole month view, and on the right side, you see it split up by teams for that specific day, and they can actually plan in new orders and all those kind of things. But just to show you that it can look really differently than what it used to be. For SimpleGov, that's really the one of the biggest projects we've done, and basically every page, every design, every page or every like projects or agencies or officials, everything is a mock-up, goes to the customer, they will approve it, they will have some adjustments, and then we start building it. That's one of the biggest examples that I can show you, because this doesn't look like a MediaWiki in any ways, but yeah, it is. And it uses the process that I've just described. Okay, so that's a little bit about the look and feel, and then some tools. I think MediaWiki is familiar with Fabricator, and that's the tool that we use as well. So when we get to the part of the project plan, that's where Fabricator comes in. And on the top, you see like a really easy workbook, but that's basically always the first workbook that we work on. So if we have a project plan, everything goes into the backlog, all the tasks that needs to be done, they will be assigned to people. And then people that have been assigned to certain tasks, they can put it into progress when they're working on it. When they're done with it, they will go into ready for evaluation. And then always one or two other colleagues, or even the customer, sometimes we give the customer access to Fabricator. They are the only ones who can put it into done, or basically back into the backlog if there's something wrong with it. So we use Fabricator for that as well. We actually build an extension for MediaWiki. So if a customer already has a wiki, we can create a page there that actually interacts with our Fabricator. So they can ask questions there. They see basically all the tasks, and they can respond to that as well. So they don't have to have access to Fabricator directly. The customer solutions, these are basically pre-made templates and widgets that we have. And they kind of, internally we call these modules. So we have modules for invoices and CRM services, workflows, support, etc. On the right, you see a screenshot of one of the implementations of the Fabricator extension that we have. So this is on a customer's wiki. And you can look at the statuses of how things are going, but you can also, if he has a problem with the wiki, he can create a new issue or a new request for something. I'll dive a little bit more into these, but I'll go through them quickly. So one of those modules, which exists out of templates, widgets, and sometimes it supports the support of an extension. But for invoices, well, as you could have guessed, it's for creating invoice pages and overviews. But you can also print the pages. So you can, if you have an invoice, you can print them or make a PDF out of it and email them as well. The CRM, so that's for persons and organizations. And this is one of the modules that can be extended by other modules, especially if you have like products, you want to attach them to, and et cetera, et cetera. Services for us, well, we call it services, but currently is for courses and course meetings. So if you want to plan a meeting even ahead of time, you can do that, and everything in between for courses, it's in there. It uses the workflow module, and I'll talk a little bit more about that because that's one of the modules that it's implemented throughout the other ones. Now I'm going to talk about it. So workflow is really actually pretty nice because you can attach several tasks or actions, and actions could simply be mailing something out, all those kind of things. You attach them to a workflow, so you create that workflow once, and then when it's time for some project to start, like a workflow, you click on the workflow, and all those tasks are created, and the actions are created as well, and you have to you go through them. Um, you got an overview and management of all the tasks in there as well. Then for the support, of course, the Fabricator integration I just talked about. We also have a Q&A module. For it's really handy, but everybody knows a Q&A, so I don't need no further explanation, I guess. Then the products, where you can create product groups and manage them, and you can attach them to the invoice module as well. So attach prices to modules or to products, etc., etc., etc. And I think this is the last one. That's surveys, to create surveys or questionnaires, and you can send them to people. You get statistics out of them. You can send them to them personally, like exactly, right to their email, and they can, and they already are, they're already inside the wiki, so they have an account for the wiki, and they just go to one of the pages and they fill it in. But it could be anonymous, so you open up one of the pages of the wiki and have them fill it in there. Because usually, I should explain that, most of the media wikis that we deliver for customers are partly closed and partly open. So that's why I said that. And we kind of use access tokens for them. So they get an email with like a link, and they click on it, and within that link, everything is there. The wiki knows which page it is, which survey it is, all those kind of things, and who the person is that fills it in. And of course, the survey statistics. Now, the part where I'm usually most involved with, personally, within Wikibase Solutions, is the extension and the styling. We have like a lot of extensions and styling that we already have done, and we can reuse for customers. One of the biggest extensions is WS Form. 95% of the time we install WS Form as soon as it has to do with anything with forms. But we also have like a Word and Excel integration. And the Excel import is, we already kind of have it, but this one is pretty, how do you call that, specific. So you can really do a lot of things before you start importing. And the word merging, we still have a lot of customers that send out Word documents to their clients, and they use the old-fashioned word merging. So they have a Word document, they attach an Excel to it, it gets merged and sent to the client. Now, we do the same thing, except we merge with data from out of the wiki, and then the wiki sends it out to the customer or the client for the customer. We created some payment plugins, actually one at the moment for PayTrace. There's a plugin for statistics. There's a plugin, or I say plugin, but extension for mail, but not only for sending mail, but also receiving mails. So somebody sends something to an email address that's set up for the client, and the wiki can act on that. So the wiki will get that email, and wiki could create a page in the wiki or do something else. WS Form has a complete mail merge in there. We use that a lot as well. Imagine you have a header as a normal wiki page is a header, and another normal wiki page is a footer, and somewhere you got a body of the mail, and then with mail merge you can kind of gather all the information you need out of the wiki, use the header, the body, and the footer as a base, and just send it out to customers. It also supports job sending, so if you have like 100 or more, it could be sending jobs. Printing and PDF, we use styling, a specific print styling CSS. So basically, there's a screenshot on the right. It's a bit vague. It looks like a letter from Wikibase Solutions, but actually that could have been actually that's an invoice, and it came out of the website. So people look at the invoice, they created an invoice or something else, or an order, and they just go to their browser's print preview, and that's what they get. So they can just print it, and it will be correctly sized to their paper size as well, or they can export it as a PDF. And then what Jess is going to talk about is, of course, the professional deploying and version management. But Jess will talk about that a bit more. And then sometimes we have something that we need to custom make. On the right, you see a screenshot for a customer who said, "Okay, I really want to add a user to the wiki, but I want to add him and all the details I have right away in one go. I don't want to go through all those pages." So that's what the screenshot on the right shows. So they can fill in everything: the username, the email, just gender, but they also can drag in an image, which will be uploaded to the user page of that person. And then all in one go, the user's created. We also created favorite pages just now for a customer, which is basically the watch system of MediaWiki, but we just kind of dressed it up so that it looks really easy, and it's really easy for them to see their own favorite pages, but we can also have an overview, etc., etc. Import tools, currently working for a customer where we need to really do hundreds of thousands of imports of XML files. And the third point is the docx to wiki pages. Those hundreds of thousands of XML files are attached to docx pages, and they need to be wiki pages inside the wiki. So this import tool will look at an XML file, will look at the docx document that comes with it, will extract any images there, will upload them to the wiki, and will tie everything together. That's a huge tool. That's like an app on its own. But sometimes we have specific parser functions. We have a customer that said, "I want to see all the page revision based on the size from this last week in order." So, and then we create that specific parser function. Custom APIs, we create a lot. Customers might have some other tool they use and it needs to communicate, so we create a custom API for that. And of course, we do a lot of JavaScript. Customers sometimes wants his website to look and feel like an app, so no reloading, all those kind of things. So they're, together with WS Form, JavaScript will come in and we'll do it that way. So there's a lot of JavaScript involved as well. Now, everything I told you, like from the custom solutions, but also, of course, how we address a project, that they make for us all the keys to success. We're growing like crazy currently still, every year. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this this presentation, to show you that with MediaWiki, the MediaWiki framework, you have like a huge base where you can do lots of successful projects with. MediaWiki is pretty awesome to begin with. This is my part of the presentation, so now we'll have Jesse going through a big part of what we do, the workflow, how people connect to each other as colleagues working together on the same PHP extension or whatever, and Jesse will talk about that and explain how we do that. So thanks for your time, and Jesse, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. I'll share my screen. I think it's shared now. Okay. Well, hello guys. I'm Jesse. I also work for Wikibase Solutions, and I will talk a bit about how we manage our development and our deployment inside Wikibase Solutions, as we're working with multiple developers on same projects or part of projects. As Charlie already mentioned, we provide our customers with off-the-shelf solutions and custom solutions. And one thing you want to do for the off-the-shelf solutions is to have some kind of management in place, so developers can work continuous on these solutions, and new versions can roll out with maybe updates or new functionalities. So we extend MediaWiki with MediaWiki extensions, which you might already know a bit about, and they are mostly managed inside Git on Gerrit or GitHub. So our own extensions also follow that procedure. And then besides that, we also have solutions consisting of maybe a combination of templates that provide a functionality, or sometimes even a combination between code files and wiki pages that provide a functionality. And we would like to manage that in the same management system. So all in Git would be preferable, but wiki pages reside in the database. So we came up with a solution called PageSync, in which we provide a text file that is basically the wiki page of the template or something else inside a wiki that represents it, and that we can version control inside Git. And also when we deploy our extension or module or template combination, we can import it inside the wiki. So our solution is completely packed inside one Git repository. Let's see, go to the next slide, if that works. Yeah. Then how does such a repository project hierarchy look like? So at the top of our repository, you will have your specific settings for a project. So your local settings file, in which you define certain settings, and your composer file, which loads dependencies. And then you will have your solutions as submodules. So our extensions could be loaded as Git submodules, or extra skins you're using, or modules or other custom requirements. Then this submodule way of thinking with Git will mean that a submodule can be a submodule for loads of different projects, but the submodule will only reside in one repository. So if you're working on a submodule, you may be working on a new functionality for multiple projects at the same time. Then if you choose this kind of hierarchy, you'll have to decide how you want to version new updates to a submodule inside your project. So maybe you would just want to update automatically if there are new updates available. So you just follow a certain branch of an extension, and then automatically, whenever you're updating your project, you will get the newest updates of your submodules. But you can also imagine some projects that will need to, where you need to have that insight whenever your code changes. So you want to stay on a certain commit and only get new updates when you really choose to update your dependent submodules. And you can also choose a sort of technique in between, that you automatically updates your submodules, but always check what the newest updates are, and if you're okay with that. Then I want to make the step to deployment, because now all our projects and submodules are inside Git, which makes it easy for us to deploy our MediaWiki installation to Docker. And also this deployment to Docker makes it easy to develop with different kind of bases. So if maybe you're working on an extension which you have made for MediaWiki 1.31, and you're trying to update it for a new MediaWiki version, you wouldn't want to do that inside the scope of a big project, because that will have a lot of other dependencies, which would also lead into errors if you're changing your MediaWiki version. So you want to load a MediaWiki clean installation with only your extension and start working from there. And that's really easy inside Docker. So that approach is also available if you're changing PHP version. You could also imagine having some kind of base inside your company, like our standard MediaWiki installation consists of these extensions and these templates, and all of our extra functionality should work on that base. So you can always test then your functionality on that base. And maybe you want to test for different kind of projects if your update still works, and you can easily switch between projects if you're using Docker, which I would like to show now. Here's I can show you here. I've made a very easy Docker composer file in which I create one MediaWiki container for MediaWiki 1.31. I say I want to connect the port 80 of the MediaWiki container to port 80 of my local machine. I insert a local settings, which is here. I insert a logo file, which is here. Then I create a database and I initialize that database with an SQL file. This SQL file is just everything that an installation of a MediaWiki does, translated to SQL. So let me start this up. I'll show you the local settings. So I've commented the logo saying, and if I, so now it doesn't have a logo, and then I'm developing something and I want to see the logo. I will uncomment this, and then I have to make sure, because it didn't work when I tried this, that I'm not looking at something cached. Let's see. Maybe it should work at some point. Did I do it correctly? I did run into caching problems earlier, so if I change this. Oh, this is. Did I miss something that I went too quickly? Yeah, okay. So you run in some caching problems, but as you can see now the logo is changed. And you can imagine doing this quite quickly with developing an extension, which I also would like to show you guys is, let's say I want to go to a new MediaWiki, new version. Then quite easily I'm again updated, and then you will see some errors because you have to run a script, and then I can show you. I will go inside my MediaWiki container and run the update script. And then this is how fast and easy I can even switch between MediaWiki installations. So that's all what Docker then has to offer if you use that for your deployment. Then I would like to continue with how we then deploy our final projects to our customers. So we have a few ways how we deploy that. We have a hosting provider for which we then deploy the solution for our customers ourselves. How we do that is we have our project in a Git repository, and then we just set up on the hosting provider a folder where a URL goes to, and then we fill that folder with just a Git clone from the repository. And then we can keep updating that project by committing files to the project repository and pulling those commits to the hosted folder. Then another way to provide our customers with our solutions is to give them a Docker image as a product, which then they can deploy themselves inside their own how they want to deploy it. I've showed on the right how such creation of a Docker image would look. So you, I saw this. So you could give up a MediaWiki version you want to install, create a container from that MediaWiki version, then create a Composer container. Then we fill that Composer container with a clean MediaWiki. From this container, we copy a clean MediaWiki install inside the Composer container, and we copy our repository inside the Composer container. Then we run our Composer and copy back the result inside the MediaWiki container, and then we're finished with our MediaWiki image product to send to our customers. Then you can extend that image with maybe some CLI operations, which you'll have to do. So as I showed in the demo, maybe you will have to run update.php or other maintenance scripts. You can add that into your Docker file and let the image run those scripts on the database, which is hosted not inside the Docker container. So you make sure every database change you need for your update is also done. Then using Git and Docker together, which I told about now may look like things you should do by hand or something, but Git gives you the possibility to use pipelines. So you can come up with some kind of logic, like whenever some commits are merged to the master branch, I would like to create a Docker image, send it to our customers, and send an email to our customers that a new Docker file is ready and they will able to deploy that. Then lastly, we also deploy on AWS and Azure. We have some experience with that, which I will talk about on the next slide. I'm not really sure how in depth I will go with this, because I'm not sure how many of our listeners will have any experience with cloud providers, but
you have a little less than 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Then for our cloud providers, we use orchestrations tools. So again, make sure that our code, our, let's say, description of our cloud environment is written in code, so people can work together and can propose changes to each other and review changes. So we use Terraform or CloudFront. Terraform is cloud agnostic, so it works for every cloud provider. CloudFront is from AWS. Then how does typical MediaWiki cloud solution look? So you start with a cloud environment, which is a VPC, private cloud, virtual private cloud, it stands for. Then you create a load balancer which sends requests to your to which wiki you want to send a request to. Then we use ECS, which manages containers. So it manages the Docker containers. So it can, based on rules you provide, it can auto-scale containers if you need more resources or less resources, or whenever you send a new Docker image to a repository, it can automatically get that new image and roll out the update without any downtime. Then we use a relational database service just to make sure we have a database for the MediaWiki installation. And to make sure that the scaling that goes on in the container side of things, you would like to have your web server only consist of code files. So things that might change are not, and need some kind of version control. So we use some static file storage, S3 called, to save user uploaded files, so like images mostly, because you wouldn't want to scale every time with all the image files in there. So you want to have them somewhere external saved. And that, I think that concludes my presentation. To summarize a bit, then our development process, how it works. We use Git with submodules and provide development on some kind of base. We then commit and propose changes to code, which then automatically is documented inside Git with commit messages and other kinds of things and tasks coupled to those commits. Then people review those commits, and then whenever a new release is planned or we want to release new code to our customers, we approve a merge request and we deploy our code with, or just a Git pull, or we provide our customers with a Docker image, or we deploy ourselves to the cloud. That was our presentation. Thank you. If there are any questions, please let me know.
Thank you both so much, Charlie and Jesse. That was amazing, really beautiful. To remind our Zoom audience, if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand in the Zoom participants window, and I will call on you. Do we have any questions? Joel.
Hi, good morning, folks. Great presentation. I just have a question about all the changes you made to the code in terms of contributing it back upstream. What practices do you do? And also, if deployed for the customer to the cloud, and they have, how do you do it? I mean, do you manage the cloud service yourself, or it's in their cloud provider account? And how do you manage overages in terms of if they use more data than you accounted for when you provision the service? Thank you.
So if I understand your question correctly, you're how we manage our cloud deployments?
Yeah, so two parts, contributing back your modifications to the open source project upstream, and also how do you manage overages in like say their bandwidth was far more than you accounted for, and do you bill that overage to the customer?
Okay, so we mostly built our cloud solutions on the cloud account of our customers. So, but if there's any more bandwidth, that's why in the cloud you use a scaling technique. So whenever bandwidth goes up too high for the amount of web servers you have available, you can scale up your amount of web servers, and then as more web servers come available, you have more bandwidth to your available for the customers of your customers to have them get to the MediaWiki website. So we haven't run into any bandwidth problems. And regarding contributing code back to the open source, I think Charlie may be able to answer that question a bit better than me.
Well, usually as for MediaWiki, we usually do not contribute directly to MediaWiki unless it's we encounter a bug or something that we really would like to have implemented, but we usually do not do that ourselves. We just, the extensions that we release will be just put on Git and in the MediaWiki page explaining the extension, but we do not actively contribute to MediaWiki itself in regards of the core.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Ryan.
Yeah, great question, or great presentation, guys. Just a quick question about your use internally of MediaWiki and your own extensions. I see you've developed a CRM tool for customers. Do you use one internally, or do you use some kind of project tracking that you've created yourself?
No, actually, everything we do, like for instance, me, if I'm working on a project, I need to log my hours. Everything is MediaWiki. So if we have a proposal for a client, it comes out of the MediaWiki and we send it off as a PDF or anything else. But yeah, we do not use anything. Well, we use Fabricator, which is not MediaWiki for our tasks, but anything else is MediaWiki. Even if describing a process, if I create some new function for something and I need to describe it, it goes into a MediaWiki. So everything, I mean, we're Wikibase Solutions, so it would be a shame if we would be doing something else.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Are there any other questions? I'll ask one myself. first of all, that was amazing. I'm very impressed with what you've done. I've seen it before, and I'm always impressed. I was wondering how many extensions that you have open sourced. I know that I've seen in the past a few, but you've got, I think, a nice collection of them. And also, is your Fabricator extension available on Git?
We haven't talked about releasing the Fabricator extension. Might be like a good time to have a chat with Ed about that. And he's in here as well, so he might be able to answer that already. But currently, we just use it for our customers ourselves, and we didn't discuss that yet if we're going to release that. And the other ones that we have released, I think it's 4. They're on Git, and WSForm is not on Git. It has been released, but kind of like to a small group. But just that is just because WSForm, if it would be really a standalone extension, it will take a little bit more so that it will work on any wiki and under any circumstances. So that's one of the reasons why it's not on Git yet.